I was gonna sing the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and you guys would have appreciated.
So you're from
that
Philadelphia,
at that
born
moment,
and
but I
raised.
didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
and I did play on the playgrounds for most of my days. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You got to cut this.
Anything is better than the Eagles fight song.
No, that was coming next, and then I was gonna say, and then I easily transitioned from the playground onto the field.
Okay.
We're gonna cut all that out. Anytime you say Eagles, we're gonna just bleep it out like you swore.
Go.
And when did you come? I'm cutting you guys off because I want to talk about the. This is what you guys always do.
You asked to learn about Jocelyn.
Yeah. So
All right, guys, we're back for another episode of the Fully Funded podcast. Yes, we're getting started now.
Yeah.
Yo, the way he's able to just like,
minutes ago,
yeah.
And then it got weird because he made it all professional.
All right, we're back for another episode of the Fully Funded podcast where we talk everything health, wealth, and lifestyle. And I'm here with my incredible co-host, Christian Lopez, and our amazing guest, Jocelyn Christiansen. What's going on, my friends?
Hey, yo.
Life.
Well, we've got a jam-packed episode for you guys today. You're in for a special treat because I brought one of the top producing loan officers in all of the land here in Central Florida, Orlando. You guys have had some incredible past guests, and we're going to be sure to bring the heat today on today's episode. And we're going to be talking about a topic that is very near and dear to me. As you know, Christian, myself, and Jocelyn, our guests included today, are in the mortgage business. So each and every month, we're going to bring you at least one segment on the mortgage business to help you guys better understand what's happening in the market, how you guys can get qualified for financing. And today's going to be fun because Jocelyn, I feel like, is the creative financing queen.
Well, I try. Yeah.
You do.
I appreciate the title.
Yeah,
as well as the intro. Thank you.
Yeah, and you know, like creative financing, as you're starting to watch this episode, you might think, oh, here's another guy that's going to talk about hard money, private money. Now, I love hard money and private money. We're going to save that for another episode. But today is an episode for you as a consumer, somebody who's looking to purchase your next home, whether you own a home now or a first-time home buyer. You're going to understand some of the creative ways that you can get into a home today if maybe you don't have the most conventional situation. Because I always say this when I talk to clients on the phone, buying a house is not complicated. It just becomes complicated if you have a complicated scenario, and there are some really complicated scenarios out there. So let's help you get into your next home and get into today's episode.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, you know, it's always kind of a funny thing when you talk to clients on the phone. They're like, do I qualify? And it's usually the answer is yes, right? Now let's talk about terms. And when you're dealing with investors, though, they're a lot more open to that, right? So tell us the difference between just a traditional person looking to buy a house and somebody who's maybe looking to invest.
I agree. I think like the biggest difference that you'll probably hear between like an investor and somebody else that you speak to is obviously the investor's just finding a way to get the property, right? They know that the value is going to come within the property. It's not a question of what's my interest rate. It's not a question of anything other than how do I get this home, right? Yeah. So I think it's just a different conversation, and then helping provide the solutions, like you just said, the creative financing.
Yeah, and I think that like a good loan officer doesn't tell somebody no. They just might tell them not now. Right? Or they're going to give them the how behind it. So before we get into the how of how you get all these incredible deals done, let's talk about who Jocelyn is. So who is Jocelyn?
Hey.
We don't have enough time.
Yeah. Like, where do I begin? Excuse me. I was born June 13th, 1986, Philadelphia.
All right.
I was gonna sing the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and you guys would have appreciated.
So you're
that
from
Philadelphia,
born and raised.
But I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And I did play on the playgrounds for most of my days. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You got to cut this.
Anything is better than the Eagles fight song.
No, that was coming next, and then I was gonna say, and then I easily transitioned from the playground onto the field.
Okay.
We're gonna cut all that out.
Hard
Anytime you say Eagles, we're gonna just bleep it out like you swore.
Go.
And when did you come? I'm cutting you guys off because I want to talk about the. This is what you guys always do.
You asked to learn about Jocelyn.
Yeah. So I'll give you my 2-minute rundown. Right? From Philadelphia, born and raised. No twist, no pun.
Okay.
Recruited for swimming to college. Went to UNC Wilmington, swam there. Went to college for broadcast journalism. Okay. And I did that. I did get into broadcasting and had a radio show for 8 years. In North Carolina, got recruited to Georgia, did a morning show there, country, which was different, which was also not me. Then met a dude in Orlando, thought he was big, tall, handsome, and I said, I'll take a risk, move down here. made it to Orlando, and then it worked out. 10 years later, we're still married, and worked for the Magic for 5 years when I met you wonderful souls as your sales rep. And then Zach said, come work for me. I said, no. He said, come work for me. I said, okay. And then I ended up here. I've been a loan originator with you since.
That's awesome, man. Anders, so he has some skills, right? I was one of those guys that got a girl to move down from New Jersey too, but she moved back 'cause she couldn't hang down.
Yeah, I went and stayed.
You never went back.
Yeah, he picked it up with a Friends, a very bad version of Friends, the Joey, how you doing? But that's the story behind the story. That's what pulled him in. And then it just was history from there since.
So tell me more about your swimming days. Was that a competitive sport for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so is that where you get your competitive
swim for fun
Do you
in
know
college?
a swimmer that ever has done it
Well,
for fun?
I'm asking you because you're like one of the most competitive people outside of me that I know. So where did that competitive fire, like where did that start? Did that start at swimming, or was that like way on earlier when you were a kid?
Yeah, way earlier. So like growing up, it was, my parents were very much like, well, growing up it was always like try every sport. And then I just loved sports. So then I became the person that did 4 sports in 3 seasons. So I did water polo and swimming in the same season, field hockey and lacrosse. And then it just kept going. Then I turned it into swimming into year round. And then my parents were always like big advocates that it's either like you put in your effort towards like competing and being like athletics, because that's going to develop me as a human being, right? Or they were like, if you're not going to swim, you don't want to do athletics, that's fine, but you're going to go get a job. And I didn't want to get a job. I was like, nah, I'm going to do sports. So I just stuck
You
with
ever get
sports.
tired?
No.
Okay, just checking.
A ton of energy all the time. Yeah.
No.
I feel like I always tell people like I just turned 38, and I was like, but I feel like I'm the same as when I was 22. I just like don't stop. I just keep going. But everything
Except for
is a
those bad
competition.
mortgage days.
Yeah. Those are the ones that make you question your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But no, I do think I just keep going forever and ever, and I hope that I can stay young forever.
I think you can accomplish that. I think that's true. So you went from competitive in sports, then you come down to Orlando. How'd you end up at the Magic?
So I wanted to, when I originally was going to college, I wanted to be an sideline broadcaster was like my life goal growing up, no lie. And then when I went to college,
Way to set the bar low there.
Please, like we have we're way better wins than you. Way more. And so then when I went to broadcast journalism, I originally just got a job in radio. I was, one of my professors was like, try out for this. And then they were like, sure, you could do that. So I was your weekend rock chick with this raspy voice. It was great. And then I got immediately promoted to like the morning show and did that. So it was like just one advance to the next, but everything for me is a competition. So it's always going to be, well, how can I be the next best? Or I want to always be number one. I think from doing sports forever, I was never given like the participation trophy. It was always like, I have to be number one. And so I made myself number one. And so I've just always competed. So when I came here to Orlando, I was living in a large city that had a professional sports team, because before that I was not. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. I want to go work for a professional sports team, not on the broadcasting side clearly, but just for a professional sports team. So I just applied for like multiple jobs for the Magic. And then they called me back and were like, we think you'd be good for sales. And I was like, okay. So I did sales with them for 5.5 years.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, like, people who take skills from prior jobs and pull them into here, because, like, I know I was in a sales position, you're in a sales position, like, you know, I don't think we ever woke up one day and thought we were going to do mortgages. So what are some of those sales skills that you took over from your prior, time with the Magic that you were able to apply here at Home First to be successful?
I do actually think I was fortunate to have done sales with the Magic, because they had such an incredible program. So I was a little bit older going into the position. Most people come out of college and immediately go, because the DeVos family has a big sports program over at UCF. So they recruit from the sports program directly to get you into sports, right? But I was the person that didn't have that background. I was a little bit older, a little bit more mature, a little bit, if we want to use the word mature. I knew there was something coming from that. You guys both were like,
It's all right. I'm a Jocelyn fan. It's okay.
Yeah, we love a little bit of immaturity.
Yeah. It makes life more fun. But I think like going into the role, I didn't have any experience in sales. So I put my ego to the side and I said, I can be the 20, I think I was like 25 or 26 and all the kids were like 21. So I was like, I can be the older person and I can learn just like they are, but I will be number one. And so I immediately like took into their training and was able to take on, which was having no experience in sales, right? So just getting to know like how do you even talk to people, getting to know, they did a lot of those tests on like how to speak to people based on their personality, right? So then once I got to understand like speaking to people makes a difference, I was able to like kind of like craft my own way of becoming my own salesperson based on that. I think I talk to like a brick wall if I'm bored. So like I think I can talk to anyone. And I think that that makes you a good sales rep as well. Just being able to break in and get to know somebody, make them comfortable with you. Once they're comfortable, hopefully you're able to pull out the things from them that you need to know in order to put them in the best position for whatever that is. Tickets to the Magic, or in this case, mortgage is more intimate. Obviously the largest investment you're going to probably make in your life, right? So just taking the time to get to know somebody and like using the skills that I think I was able to develop through all the years, through being everything from sports to sales to this now.
All right. So do you want to say anything?
No, I was just gonna ask a question. So it's funny because we keep saying sales, and being a loan officer, we always say you're in sales because you're selling something, but it's different. Because like the Magic, you're selling tickets to a game. Nobody really needs that. Why? Like, I don't want a sales connotation to be like negative when it comes to mortgages. What do you think is some of the main differences in terms of what you're selling now versus what you're selling before?
Sure. Well, they always say, this is funny, like when I was with the Magic, I was not in any of the glory days. So I was literally selling the Magic when we were like 13 and 60 or whatever it was. It was bad. And they always said, if you can sell a bad sports team, you can sell anything in the world because it's a luxury product, right? Nobody needs to go watch a bad sports team. And at the time we weren't performing. So they were like, if you can sell this, you can do anything. And then I feel like I came into mortgages, right? In like the glory days, it was interest rates were those glorious 1, 2s, and 3s, right? We were living like the high life, and I was like just learning by being like, here, go and like get it done. And so I did. And now like we're in like one of, I would say is probably like in my mind the most challenging market, right? But I don't have as much experience as what you guys have been through.
It's challenging.
Yeah. So I would say it is sales in the sense that like we are providing a service to somebody and they have a choice of what they're going to make. So like getting to know them and putting yourself in a position where they're going to trust you and believe in you and move forward with you, that is a sale.
Yeah.
So that's a great transition because your resilience at the Orlando Magic when the Magic were just not doing well and you still had the ability to sell, season tickets and stuff really is a testament to what you're doing right now as a loan officer and why whoever's watching this video definitely wants to work with a loan officer like you, whether you're a realtor or even a consumer looking for a mortgage. Why do you want a loan officer like Jocelyn in your corner is their ability to be resilient, because let's talk about some truths right now, right? The market is difficult, right? Interest rates are higher. Affordability is a real challenge. And, people are making income in all sorts of different ways, trying to survive. Things are, money is all over the place. The way that people manage their finances are very different than they were before. And the reason that you've been able to keep your numbers and your volume consistent with prior years where other people have seen a massive decline is because you've been able to get creative. So what I'd like to do today is I'd like to go through some of those creative scenarios for the audience so that hopefully they watch this, they can relate maybe to that scenario, and then they can end up connecting with you in hopes of maybe be able to get into a home. So,
okay,
where do we want to start?
I do, like, we just actually had a lot of, like, the rehash on this, because, like, November and December for me were my worst months in my career, right? And then it was, like, I didn't want to go into this year being, like, another tough year, right? So then that's where I kind of changed my mindset and said, yeah, it's going to be hard because we are still sitting in the higher interest rate markets. But then I said to myself, okay, like, what can I do different? Because what I was doing wasn't working. And that's where I just completely, like, immersed myself into figuring out, like, how can I, instead of saying no to people, like you were just saying, yeah, some people have to get a no or a not now, right?
Yeah.
But then instead of saying like not now, maybe there is a way that we can make it now. And I think that's where I kind of was just like, I set up my system so that I was finding every product out there and I was getting informed on them so that when I had a conversation with someone, I was like, oh, wait, I think I did read that somewhere. And I was able to reference back to it and find those solutions.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it all started, was I didn't want to settle for what was being, like, we were settling for less because it's hard, but I didn't think that that was acceptable.
So you're going to have some people that watch this video and say, okay, well, we're going to talk about ways to get people qualified untraditionally. And I think that they're going to just move towards, well, these people can't afford their mortgages. Are we back in the same days of, stated loans and stated income, and these people shouldn't even get a mortgage again? And that got us in hot water in the last, mortgage crisis that we had. So the majority of the people you help with these unique scenarios, do you genuinely believe that they can afford these mortgages and they make good income, but they just have a creative situation?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're still looking at the same pieces as purchasing a regular home, right? You're still looking at your income, your assets, and your credit report. And that's always going to be the things that we're focused on. But maybe your income, we can't go the traditional route. Like a self-employed borrower, we've been able to really find ways to make it happen. When somebody does make a lot of income but writes off a significant amount of income, let's get creative with other products so that they can make those purchases. And there's different ways to even do that, right? It's not always just a bank statement. So
if I'm self-employed right now, we just passed tax time when we're recording this, and I write off all my income for whatever reason. How do I qualify for a mortgage if I typically need to show my tax returns? What types of products are out there for you?
I think the creative ones, we go into this non-qualified mortgage market, right? So now we're no longer going the traditional route. If you're self-employed, there's different opportunities, such as what we talked about, a bank statement loan. Instead of looking at your taxes, we're looking at how much money are you depositing into your bank account, and we're just calculating it that way.
Okay,
right?
Can you tell me how that works?
Sure. So if we're to break it down in 101, the most layman's terms possible is literally we can do 2 different routes, a 12-month or a 24-month history, right? So we're looking at how much money are you depositing into this business bank account, and then we're literally going to pool the deposits. Now, not all deposits that you place into your account are eligible funds, right? But we're going to pool them in. We're going to make sure that you're averaging more so that we're qualifying your income based on deposits into your account minus an expense ratio. So when we look at your taxes, you're using your net income. So after you write everything off, this is what you're qualified for, right? But with the bank statements, it's different. We're saying this is the profession that I do, and this is approximately how much my expenses are for it at a percentage. So everything that's deposited in becomes your gross minus a small percentage expense ratio. Now we're qualifying for the home based on that.
And what is a typical expense ratio? So let's slow this down a little bit. So I'm going to give you my last 12 months bank statements, and I average $10,000 a month in deposits. So I make $120,000 a year. That's my gross income. That's not necessarily what the lender is using. What you're saying, from that $120,000, they're then going to factor in an expense ratio, and they're going to reduce that. So they're going to assume that I'm going to write things off of that $120,000 or have some type of business expenses. So what's a common expense percentage that you can expect for them to take off from there?
Yeah, that's easy. So they categorize it into 2 different categories. It's either serviced or product. And they're going to say, are you a service industry or are you a product industry? Product industry obviously means that you're buying things and selling it. And in that case, you're going to have a higher expense ratio because you're buying products, right? So you're having to use your expenses to get them sold. So you have less of a margin in those ones. So the product industries are more that, or service industries could be like lawn care, right? You're somebody that's out there and you're running a landscaping company. You probably have already bought your equipment at this point, right? You're running your business, but you're just providing service at this point. So your expense ratio will be a lot lower. It can be anywhere from a CPA letter stating that you get 10% expense ratio up to a product service. They do start at 50%, so it's much higher. Yeah. But with a CPA letter that comes back and says, hey, that's actually only 30% of product, we have a really high margin, then ultimately we can use a lower percentage based on a professional CPA stating that.
Yeah, right. So the most interesting thing about this is you started off a qualified mortgage versus a non-qualified mortgage. And I think that those terms, if you don't know what they mean, sort of raise flags, because you're saying non-qualified, but then you just went through a 5-minute
So what
spiel
does it
on
mean,
how
Christian?
to qualify them, right?
Right.
So, I was going to ask her that, but if you want me to answer the question.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
Well, so everybody thinks back to the crash, right? Stated income. So you go buy a house, 100% financing. I have a landscaping business, and I make
$10,000 landscaping business?
Yeah, have you ever seen these hands in landscaping? These are typing.
They too pretty for that.
These are typing fingers. No, so they would be able to do that, right? And they get an adjustable rate, and when that rate dumps up, and I can't afford this mortgage anymore, I'm going to walk away from it because I don't have any skin in the game. And so a qualified mortgage was, for the average person, we have to prove that they can qualify and prove that they have an ability to repay it. Now, that's through pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns. The non-qualified or non-QM is a way to look at an alternative way to qualify them, because you still have to prove the ability to repay, even if it's not considered a qualified mortgage. And that's where it goes down into your whole spiel of your bank statements. But there are other avenues, right? Let's say I I don't even want to show you my bank statements, but I want to buy an investment property. How does one go about that?
Right. So those, some people call them the investor cash flow loans, other people DSCR, which is a debt service coverage ratio. So essentially in those ones, these are the easiest ones to qualify for. The reason why is because you're telling the lender that I'm purchasing a home, but I'm not going to live in it. I'm going to get rental income that's going to pay this mortgage. So my qualifying for it is that somebody else is going to pay this mortgage for me. So we have an appraiser go out to do the appraisal on the property to figure out the value. The appraiser then tells us what our fair market value rent is for the house. What that means is how much does the appraiser see houses are renting for in that area, right? And then that's how much the mortgage needs to equal or less. So we're not showing income because I don't need your income for that. Your coverage to or your promise to the lender is that I'm going to have it rented and the renter is going to cover it, and look, my mortgage is less than the rental income that I would get. So those ones are really easy because you're just showing I've got the money for the down payment and the closing cost. I have a credit score to show that I'm worthy to do this, right? And then I also have reserves just in case maybe someone isn't renting it for a month. I got reserve backup funds to be able to cover that mortgage. So the DSCRs are very popular for investors and a really easy way to get into a home without having to show any income.
Yeah, and you could even cash money out too. If like you have a couple rental properties, you want to go buy more, you could take advantage of this product and get cash out to buy other properties based on the performance of the home you currently own.
Exactly.
But let's say I qualify for one, right? Why do, like, some investors, they can qualify on paper. Why do they still choose to do a DSCR?
The ease of the process, right? Because it is so much easier. We aren't providing as much documentation. I think in this case, with the investors that I've spoken to, again, it's not so much as how do I get the home? It's I want this home, get it for me, and give me the path of least resistance. And in that case, when you're an investor, securing the property is way more important than anything else, right? Because you're looking at what is this property going to do for me and growing this portfolio that I'm working on. So the investors that I speak to that I have directed in this, it's always been, this is the easiest route to go. And if you were already going to put down X amount of money, let's just go ahead and go the easiest route.
Well, we don't profess to be tax professionals. Is there a tax benefit?
I would assume, yeah. I don't do that side of it, but I always tell people, sure, you can talk to your CPA. If you want to dive into that, you can.
Because most people don't even close it in their names. They'll choose to close it in an LLC, which helps them even more in future purchases, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I have a scenario. So we've talked about self-employed buyers, their ability to like use bank statements and stuff to qualify. We talk about investors where they can use the rental income on the property versus their own personal income to qualify. You know, in Florida, we're a big retiree state, right? So there's a lot of individuals who maybe don't have an income or their income is very small. Maybe they just receive Social Security or small pension. And, you know, things are not cheap these days. So even if you're making a $2,000-$3,000 Social Security, maybe you make $1,000 pension, that's $4,000 a month. You know, if you know anything about qualifying for a mortgage, you typically borrow up to 50% of your gross monthly income. On paper, that's only $2,000. If you had no debt, you're maybe buying $200,000 house, right? It's just not a lot. So if you have a retiree that comes here and maybe they're sitting on a couple $1 million even, or a couple $100,000, or whatever the amount is, they're sitting on a large amount of cash, or they sold the property in another state, they're coming over here and they don't want to use all of their funds to buy the house because they're retired, right? Maybe they're walking over here with $1.5 million. They're willing to put $1 million on a house, but they want to keep $500,000 because they want to, go to the country club, play some golf and stuff like that. But their, pension, Social Security is just not enough to qualify. What types of loans are out there for people who are asset heavy but income short? How do they buy a house that way?
I think there's a few different routes you can go with it. Of course, asset depletion is the easiest one, and it's self-explanatory, right? How much money do you have that you can show to prove that, yeah, I don't want to buy this cash. I do want your help with financing it. And then utilizing the money that you have in the bank, they'll take a percentage of it and say this is how much income you could make per month from it. That would qualify you for the mortgage, and then you're able to do it that route.
Yeah.
You can do a no income at all mortgage which is a community mortgage, right? Mm-hmm. That one's also one where you're just showing I've got a ton of money, it's all cash and it's sitting there, but I don't want to spend it all, so I'll give you 50% down as long as you'll help me with this. So there is products for primary residences, right, where you can even show no income or using the assets that you have as a depletion to show that you'd be able to cover that mortgage.
Nice.
Yeah, so if we broke it down and said, okay, traditionally you'll go get a conventional VA, FHA loan, I show some pay stubs, maybe tax returns, and I qualify, my credit's good, right? So that's this bucket. But I get denied for that. But I still want to buy a primary. So I'm looking to buy a primary house. Just rapid fire recap what we've gone through. I'm a primary, I want to buy my own house. What are my options?
Self-employed, you can go about it as the non-qualified mortgage way, right? So you got your bank statement loans. You can make it even easier. You can do a profit and loss from a CPA. You can do a 1099 loan, so they're only looking at your 1099s, right? You can do a community mortgage if you're sitting on a bunch of assets and you're just able to do it with asset depletion is another one. So there is actually a ton of different ways that you can go about it.
And then if I'm
ITIN, if you don't even have a social security number.
Ew.
Oh, hello. Okay, so now I'm an investor, right? So we talked about the mindset difference between me buying a house as a traditional consumer and an investor. An investor cares about
just securing the property.
But like what's important to them?
To me, growth and equity, right?
Yeah. So they know, like, I'm gonna have the net worth from this. I'm gonna have the cash flow from this. I'm not looking at the interest rate as much as I'm looking at the cash flow, because the cash flow will justify the rate.
Exactly.
What kind of products am I looking at? Can I still do bank statements?
I mean, you can do bank statement. Yeah, bank statement investments are definitely a product. Everything that we kind of just named
DSCR.
is. Then we add in the DSCR factor with no income.
And what's my favorite newest product that we're crushing over here?
Fix and flip.
Fix and flip, baby. Hard money. Let's go. Which you could do as little as 10% down. You could buy a house, fix it up, and if you don't want to sell it, you could actually do a DSCR.
I hope that you pause the video right there and put that like in the do. This is my fix and flip drop.
So, if you need a fix and flip loan, call Zach.
Yeah, but I mean that's like fantastic, because like everybody wants a fixer upper. Like, I want a fixer upper, but if I go, Fannie's not gonna let me buy that fixer upper.
No.
Because chances are it's not gonna pass a traditional appraisal inspection, even on a conventional loan. So like, I want to buy this house. What does my fix and flip look like?
Yeah. And I love
Zach
fix and
got
flips
you.
because like a lot of people think you need 25% down to buy investment property, and you can get into these flips with only 10% down as long as you have the margin after you bring it to a saleable property. So I want to talk about one more topic, right? We talked about creative financing. But
Can I touch one topic on creative financing?
Yeah, go for it.
Because you just said you can get into, like, I think the one thing that most people need to realize with the non-qualified mortgages so these non-traditional ways of qualifying, right? It is something that most people can, but it's not for everybody. And the reason why is because I always say the traditional way is the way they want you to do it. So they give you the best terms, right? 5% down, 3.5% down. But the one thing about the non-qualified is that you do have to have a little bit more skin in the game because you're not doing it the other way, right?
Yeah.
So let's just focus that one is a 10% down starting program minimum, just like your fix and flip product, right? But is it a solution? Yes.
Yeah, we can get it done. So if you made it this far in today's podcast, this part you want to pay attention to, because I'm going to ask a very important question that's going to really relate to a lot of people. We talked a lot about creative financing, bank statements, all these crazy products. But what about your average person who goes to a mortgage lender and is told no, they don't qualify, and then they come to us and we tell them yes, and this happens all the time. And let's talk about different examples of why it's so important to work with a mortgage professional that understands the guidelines, because they're so intricate. Like, for instance, we have somebody right now who is working part-time. If you go to 99% of mortgage lenders who don't really know the guidelines, they're going to tell you if you work part-time, you need to be minimum 1 to 2 years, depending on the lender that you go with. Where we're able to get a loan done if you work part-time, like for only a few months. So talk to me about, like, if you're not this like self-employed person making millions of dollars, but you're just an average Joe and you've been told no a few times, why you shouldn't give up and why you should consider talking to somebody who has a lot more experience like yourself.
I think that you just gave the answer, right? You said exactly why, because we are providing those solutions, right? Like, we know our guidelines, and ultimately maybe it's a scenario that we don't know. Well, we've got a team with 18 years of experience. Between the two of you guys, 40 years of experience, right?
Don't age me.
Yeah, I'm the old one here. But I would say it just comes down to that. We have the resources, we have the experience, but also we have the understanding that we don't want to say no, right? I don't want to say no. I want to find a way. So like you just said, maybe I've had this happen twice to me in the last 12 months where the realtor came and said, oh yeah, no, they went to the bank and they don't have credit scores, so they can't qualify. Well, that's funny, because you can qualify for both conventional and for FHA without credit scores, and you can go about it the traditional route, right? So I was able to take somebody being like, oh, I sent them your information, but I already told them no, or the bank. Sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to drop names like that. But
Bleep that out along with the Go Birds.
just bleep that. Yeah, bleep that
It's
part.
okay.
that bank.
okay.
But I would say like that's happened twice now. And then we got them closed on their home, right? And so it doesn't always have to be a no. And I think that that's where we do know what we're doing because we have the resources, or we're taking the time to say, is this a true no? Let's quickly dive into this. Has anybody else gone through this? Or let me call this lender. Let me call this underwriter. We have access to the underwriters to ask them, and they can provide us with answers to get us the solutions that we're hoping for.
But I think you have to care too. I mean, it's one thing you want to hit your goals and you want to be number one, but like you can do that in other avenues. Like you have to actually care and want to help these people out. And I think those stories typically bring us more joy than anything else, is knowing that like this guy thought he could not buy a house and today he's going to close on his home, or her close on her own.
And it happens every day. It's just about being persistent and being willing to look for those different programs. You know, if you're a first time buyer, this is kind of the advice that I would give you, right? Is that we're going to look at those three major pillars, as Jocelyn mentioned, which is your credit, income, and assets. And if you feel like you have strength in some of those pillars and weaknesses in others, like if you've got income and you've got some money, but your credit's not good, like come to us. We're wanting to see at least 2 out of those 3 things, right? If you have, bad credit, we'll help you get it fixed, right? If you don't have, credit, we'll find a program like you said. If you have great income and great credit, but you just haven't been able to save money because things have gotten really expensive, like let's help you out with down payment assistance. So, there's one thing to have access to product as a mortgage lender, is another actually understanding how to get those products done. And, if you've been told no a bunch of times and you feel like you have a scenario that maybe is not that difficult, just consider maybe chatting with us.
Definitely. And always ask for a second opinion. Maybe you were told no. Well, then come to us. Tell us why they said no, and let's see if we can find a way to get around it.
Yeah. And what's confusing and difficult for one person is not for the other.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to give a quick resume here. So you've been in the mortgage business for
3.5 years.
3.5 years. You've closed hundreds of transactions. Let's go. I want to go through the list for the person watching this to know why they should reach out to Josh, because you could talk about programs all day long and get up there and like never have actually closed it. But you've done HELOCs.
Yep.
You've done HELoans.
Yep.
I see. I'm not even starting with FHA, conventional VA, right? All that stuff.
Loans, yeah.
All right. Bank statements, right?
Yeah.
For both personal bank statements, business bank statements.
Oh yeah.
DSCRs. You've actually closed those. Construction of perm.
Yes.
Yeah. Renovation loans.
loans.
Have you done the fix and flip?
I've sent Zach a fix and
All
flip.
right,
That's
all
Zach
right,
did.
yeah.
Private money.
Private money.
I've done a
Those
few. And
are
hard
the fun
monies.
ones, and
Yeah.
hard monies. All right, so
Condos.
Foreign nationals.
non-warrantable condos that Fannie has said no, we've gotten loans on.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I say all this is because I don't want this just to be like, hey, we read a book and now we're gonna teach you on it. We're telling you from our experience, from 19 years, 18 years, even though being just a few years in the industry, what you've been able to accomplish is so crucial. But it does go to show that why somebody should reach out to you. And if it's not first, at least don't take no for an answer. There's loan products available out there for you. Sometimes we might not like all the terms to it,
Right.
but that doesn't mean there's not something available to either make the dream of home ownership possible or to start your investment portfolio.
Yeah, or put you on the right path, right? It can be an easy fix. That's the best thing about it, is maybe it's not a yes today, but maybe I can put you in a position to say yes in 30 days from now.
So we've got a couple links in the description of the show notes that'll help you get in touch with Jocelyn and our team to go over your scenario confidentially. Feel free to reach out to us. If you had a unique scenario that you want, us to hear about, put a comment in there. Tell us about it. I know people have got crazy stories about buying their home. So guys, hopefully you found this helpful. Tune in every month again for our mortgage segment right here on the Fully Funded podcast. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye-bye.